Somewhere in a lab right now, a machine flipping the equivalent of a coin millions of times a second is being nudged by something it can't see and can't measure with a ruler. The thing nudging it is a human heart. Not your hand on the device, not your voice, not a wire, a field of feeling, generated thousands of miles away, bending the odds in a sealed box. And if a quiet intention can reach across an ocean and touch a stream of pure randomness, then the half effort you've been bringing to your own life is leaking power you didn't know you had. Let me show you what's actually been recorded, because this isn't a campfire story. For decades, researchers ran machines called random number generators. Think of a device that does nothing but produce noise. A perfectly unbiased coin tossed endlessly. Statistically, it should average out to a flat line of 50-50 forever. That's the whole point of randomness. It refuses to lean, except under certain conditions it leaned. When a group of people gathered around these devices and held a single focused intention together, the output drifted. The randomness developed a tilt, small but consistent, repeating across many trials. Far past what chance allows, the effect showed up during moments of shared intense feeling. Global tragedies, mass celebrations, synchronized meditations. The needle moved when millions of hearts moved as one. So a question forms, and it's the right one to ask. Could it be coincidence? A skeptic would say the data got cherry-picked, that any long stream of noise will show clusters if you go hunting for them after the fact. That's a serious objection, and it deserves a serious answer. The researchers knew it too, so they pre-registered their predictions. They named the moment of expected coherence before it happened, then checked the data after. The tilt still appeared, predicted in advance, confirmed in retrospect, again and again. But here's what most people miss when they hear this. The size of the effect depended on something specific. It wasn't raw thinking that moved the machine. Cold analytical concentration did almost nothing. A person sitting there grinding mentally, jaw clenched, forcing the result through willpower, produced flat results. The drift appeared strongest when intention married emotion, when the mind held a clear aim and the body filled with elevated feeling at the same time. Gratitude, awe, love, deep care. The signal rode the feeling. Sit with that for a second, because it rearranges everything you've been told about discipline. You were raised to believe effort is a clenched fist. Grit your teeth, force the outcome, push through with brute mental pressure. And the cleanest measurement we have of intention touching the physical world says the clenched fist barely registers the open, elevated state is what carries the charge. Two ingredients, working together, a precise target, and a heart that's genuinely lifted. Now bring this home to your work, to the thing you keep half finishing. Most people approach their craft the way a tired person approaches a treadmill. They show up resentful. They produce the motions of work while broadcasting a feeling of dread, lack, and quiet self-doubt. The intention is fuzzy and the emotion is heavy. According to everything those machines recorded, that's the weakest possible combination. Murky aim, low feeling. You're transmitting static and wondering why nothing answers. Hustle culture falls apart right here. It worships volume. More hours, more grind, more white-knuckle pressure. But pure pressure is the analytical-only state that moves nothing in the lab. You can pour 14 hours of clenched anxiety into a project and saturate it with the exact frequency you're trying to escape. The hours pile up. The field stays flat. So what actually moves things? The same two ingredients the data points to. A coherent intention you can state in one clean sentence, and the elevated emotion of already living inside its completion. This is the law of assumption made physical. The teachers who spoke of consciousness as the one and only reality were describing a mechanism. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Hold the inner conviction as though it's already done. The masters called this living in the end, and it works like resonance. You match the frequency of the completed thing until your whole system hums there. I'll run a track through Attune. It retunes any song to 432 Hz, link in the description. Before I sit with that state, just to settle into the feeling faster. And a sterile machine in a shielded room, with no idea what you hope for, registers a version of the same principle. Coherent feeling reorganizes probability. Think about what that means for the next thing you sit down to build. You've been treating your inner state as a passenger, a side effect of how the work is going. Flip it. Your inner state is the engine. The emotion you carry into the task is the active ingredient, the carrier wave. You are, every single working hour, running an experiment with your own consciousness as the generator and your life as the output stream. And the distance part changes the stakes completely. The effect held through walls, through shielding, through thousands of miles of ocean. So stop telling yourself your circumstances are too far gone, your starting point too low, your industry too crowded. Distance was the variable that was supposed to kill the signal, and the signal survived it. If feeling reaches across a continent into a sealed box, it reaches across the gap between who you are and who you're becoming. But let's be honest about how hard this actually is, because the soft version of this teaching is a lie that keeps you weak. People hear feel good and it'll come, and they imagine a one-time burst of positive thinking. Smile at the mirror, recite a line, done. The data says otherwise. The effect was small per moment and depended on coherence sustained across many people for a sustained window. Translate that to you alone, over years, and you understand the real demand. It's the discipline of a sustained inner state, the grueling patience of holding an elevated assumption while your senses scream the opposite. That's the work ethic almost nobody has. Anyone can feel inspired for an afternoon. The rare ones hold the frequency when the results haven't shown up yet. When the bank account argues, when the silence stretches and doubt moves into the house. That's the real definition of grit. The quiet, unglamorous practice of guarding your inner state like it's the most valuable asset you own. Because it is. It's the generator. So how do you actually do this, day to day, with a real life and real bills? You start with what the old teachers called a mental diet. You become ruthless about the feelings you rehearse. Every time you replay the conversation that went wrong, every time you mentally audition failure, you run the generator on the frequency of lack. You broadcast the tilt you're trying to avoid. The practice is to catch the loop and return, gently and 1,000 times if needed, to the assumed feeling of the thing already accomplished. Then you bring that state to the work itself. Before you open the laptop, you take 60 seconds and actually generate the elevated emotion. Real gratitude for the chance to build. Real awe at the fact you get to try. You set one coherent intention for the session, simple enough to say out loud. Then you work from inside that state instead of waiting for the work to grant it to you. The order is everything. State first, action second. Action from the elevated state, never the search for it. And here's where the patience gets tested. You'll do this for a day and check the mailbox. Nothing. You'll do it for a week and the numbers won't budge. This is the exact moment the experiments warn you about. The drift in those machines was real, but it was small per moment, only visible when the coherence stacked across thousands of measurements. Your life works the same way. One elevated morning won't repaint your circumstances. 1,000 of them, accumulated, holding the same clean aim, will tilt the whole field of your days. Most people quit at measurement number 9, then blame the universe for being silent, so you keep depositing the feeling whether the world answers or not. That's the part that feels insane while you're doing it, and obvious once it works. A skeptic inside you is still arguing, and you should let them speak. Maybe the lab effects are tiny, they say. Maybe a statistical drift in a machine proves nothing about your career. Fair. Even granting every cautious interpretation, even shrinking the claim to its most modest form, something undeniable remains. Your sustained inner state changes the actions you take, the chances you notice, the rooms you walk into, the way your voice lands when you ask for what you want. The mechanism debate can rage for another 50 years. The practical instruction holds regardless. Carry the feeling. Aim it clean. Hold it long. There's a strange comfort buried in those experiments, and it's the opposite of what you'd expect. It would be easier, honestly, if the universe ignored us, then nothing we felt would matter, and we could stay numb in peace. The machines say the opposite. They say, your feeling does something, which means the dread you've been marinating in while you work hard has been doing something too. All this time, quietly tilting your results toward the very outcome you fear. That's the key you've been holding the whole time. You don't have to manufacture more hours. You don't have to grind harder against the wall. You have to do the harder, finer thing. Become coherent. Get the aim clear and get the heart lifted, and stay there longer than your doubt can last. The treadmill of resentful effort was never the path. It was the static. So the next time you sit down to build the thing that matters, remember the sealed box thousands of miles from any human hand, drifting off perfect randomness because somewhere a group of people felt something real, together, on purpose. You are that box and that group at once, the generator and the field, the intention and the feeling that carries it. Set the aim, lift the heart, and work like the whole sealed, silent universe is already leaning your way, because the only thing the data ever asked of you was to mean it.